Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Brothers and sisters, I pray you all well. Alhamdulillah. We're blessed to be joined by Ustadh Abbas Naveed, who's travelled all the way from Manchester today to inshallah benefit us with a reminder titled Attaining At-Taqwa. Just to read from the Bible.
Keep zooming in. Bring it down.
Bring it down.
That's it.
It's important, inshallah.
That's a bit more.
Abul has actually studied in the University of Medina.
Just lift this up a bit so you get the
and he studied under the likes of Sheikh As-Suhaili, Sheikh Buhairi, and many others. Alhamdulillah, he currently resides in Nelson, where he is the Imam and Khatib of Masjid Sunnah. Alhamdulillah. And inshallah, the format of today's session isn't too long. Hopefully, inshallah, it'll be roughly about an hour in length. And Q&A will be at the end of the session, inshallah. Without further ado, inshallah, I'll pass it over to Ustadh.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله أما بعد. إخواني الكرام, before I begin, can I request humbly everybody to move away from the walls and to come close. Unless somebody is very old or has a back problem, then ma'adul. Otherwise, young brothers, mashallah, sitting far away. And you know, always, whenever a guest comes and then finds people sitting against the wall and far away, it has an effect on the guest. And when a guest comes and people are sitting close to him, it also has a positive effect on the guest. In addition to the fact that from the adab of talab al-ilm, from the etiquette of seeking knowledge, is that we all sit close together. In fact, from the adab of Islam, is that we sit together. And this is why Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when they returned from a journey and they stopped off somewhere, and the Sahaba, they sat down in order to rest, and they dispersed. So some were sitting over there and one or two over there, and they were sitting in small groups. And the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, "Inna tafarraqakum hada min amali shaytan." That this dispersing of yours and sitting in faraway places alone, this is from the actions of a shaytan. So even the adab of Islam is that when we eat, we sit together and eat. And we also congregate together. And we begin by mentioning the name of Allah, and He is Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, and sending hamd upon Allah subhanahu, and He is Rabb al-Alameen, and reminding each other, Inna al-aqibata lil-muttaqeen, that verily the good ending, the final abode, it is for the people of At-Taqwa. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah waliyul awwalina wal akhirin. And Allah is the guardian and the protector of the first and the last. Wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh, Imam al-Muttaqin. Now our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he's the Imam and he's the role model for the people of At-Taqwa, al-mab'utha rahmatan lil alamin. And he was sent as a rahmah, as a mercy for all mankind. Ayyuhal ikhwatul kiram, the reminder today, and it is nothing except a reminder, is regarding At-Taqwa. And of course, At-Taqwa is a very important topic because it is the basis of every single action. It is at the core of our deen, At-Taqwa. And it is the only way by which a person will find success and salvation in this life and in the hereafter. It is only through At-Taqwa. And of course, maintaining taqwa and developing At-Taqwa This is important and an obligation upon every single one of us throughout the year, in every month of the year, every day of the year, every week of the year, in all of the stages of your life, you have to be upon At-Taqwa. And so Taqwa is not specific to 1 month or to one stage in your life. So we cannot say that At-Taqwa is when I become old, or At-Taqwa is when I become married, or At-Taqwa is when I graduate from university, when I enter into a job, when I get my citizenship. Rather, Taqwa is the obligation upon all of us in every single situation of our lives, in every single month. But it is more emphasized in the month of Ramadan. It is more emphasized in the month of Ramadan. And this is because when Allah subhanahu spoke about fasting in the ayah which you have all heard of in the khutbah and the lesson, He said, Subhana ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyam. O people of Iman, fasting has been prescribed for you. Kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum. Just as it was prescribed on those who came before you. Why? Who knows the ayah? No. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. So you may attain At-Taqwa. So in this blessed ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah, when Allah subhanahu spoke about fasting and that it is legislated and prescribed, He then mentioned the wisdom behind it. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. So you may attain At-Taqwa. And this shows us that the essence of fasting and the essence of Ramadan is not staying away from food and drink. Now, staying away from food and drink is one of the obligations of a fast, one of the conditions of a fast. But this is not the essence of the fast, neither is it the objective of fasting. The essence and the objective of fasting is to develop At-Taqwa. And this ayah shows us that Allah subhanahu obligated upon us that we stay away from food and drink as a means to develop At-Taqwa. So the fasting itself and staying away from food and drink, this is not the objective. This is only a wasila, this is only a means. And the means is to the objective, meaning to develop At-Taqwa. And so any person who's fast or who's at Ramadan is restricted to only the stomach. Now, if there's a person who's at Ramadan is restricted to only the stomach, then yes, his fast is valid, but he has not achieved the objective behind fasting. And neither has that person understood the essence of fasting, haqiqatul sawm. And this is why amongst the Salaf, or those who would say, Ahwanu siyam sawmul batan, that the most easiest fast, the lowest fast, is the fasting of the stomach. The fasting of the stomach is something which anybody and everybody can do. There are children, even in our community, in your families, 7, 8, 9 years old, and they can complete a full fast. There are kuffar who complete full fast. A couple of days ago, in my town, I went to give like a reminder in a primary school, and it was like a community iftar. And amongst the teachers, it was a primary school, amongst the teachers who were non-Muslims, was some who had fasted 5 days, 10 days, and one of the teachers, his name was Phil, he had fasted every single day. And he'd done this last year and the year before, meaning 30 days of fasting in inverted commas. So, the fasting of the stomach, ahwan as-sawm. This is the easiest, most basic thing that every single person can do. A person of taqwa and a person of fisq and sinning can do it. So this shows us that it isn't just the state of our stomach and what we place in our mouth, which is the essence and the objective, the haqiqah of fasting. And this is why in the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, which you all know and you will have heard of in the sermons, what did the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam say? مَنْ لَمْ يَدَعْ قَوْلَ الزُّورِ وَالْعَمَلَ بِهِ فَلَيْسَ لِلَّهِ حَاجًا يَدَعْ طَعَامَهُ وَشَرَابَهُ. That the one who does not leave alone and abandon false speech, evil actions, Allah has no need for that person for him to abandon his eating and his drinking. Because ultimately, who benefits from the fast? Not Allah subhanahu. How can he benefit from us staying away from a little bit of food and drink for a few hours for 1 month in the year? And he's Rabbus Samawati wal Ard. And he said to us as humans, Antumul Fuqara, that you are the ones who are poor and needy. And it is Allah who is Al-Ghani Al-Hamid. It is Allah who is self-sufficient, not in need of anybody. He is the creator of the food and drink. He is Rabbu Ramadan. He is the Lord of Ramadan. Inna Allah huwa Razzaq dhul quwwatil mateen. He is the Razzaq, the provider, dhul quwwah al-mateen, the one who possesses great strength. So he does not benefit from me and you abandoning our food and drink for a few short hours, for a few days. But it is we who benefit. And so from the mercy of Allah, from the rahmah of Allah, is that He obligated upon us Ramadan. This is from His mercy. He obligated upon us that which benefits us and refines our own hearts and our own souls. And then in addition to this, He rewards us for doing that thing. So He obligates upon us something which is of no benefit to Him at all. If all of the ummah, from the humans and the jinn, from Adam alayhi salam until Yawm al-Qiyamah, if every single one of them fasted the full Ramadan, it will not benefit Allah subhanahu in any way. It will not increase Him in any way. Because He is Rabbus Samawati wal Ard. And the one who is perfect in every single one of His attributes cannot be increased. And if every single person and jinn from Adam alayhi salam to Yawm al-Qiyamah, if every single one of them completely disobeyed Allah subhanahu and did not fast, this does not decrease Allah subhanahu in anything. Because He is Dhul Quwwatil Mateen. And so this fasting is for our own benefit. And as I mentioned, the essence of fasting is what? To develop At-Taqwa. And At-Taqwa, always when it's translated into English, it's translated with very loose translations. And in reality, the word Taqwa, it cannot be directly translated into English because it's an Islamic terminology, Quranic terminology. It cannot be translated. So Taqwa has to be explained, and Taqwa has to be understood. And this is the objective of this reminder today, a reminder for me and also you, that we understand what is At-Taqwa and what are the benefits of At-Taqwa, and then what are the ways in which a person can attain and achieve At-Taqwa. May Allah subhanahu make me and you from the people of At-Taqwa. So firstly, what is At-Taqwa? And even before this, I want to highlight the importance of At-Taqwa. And this is shown by the fact that how many ayat are there in the Quran which speak about At-Taqwa? How many ahadith of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam speak about At-Taqwa? How many times have you heard or read Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullah? Numerous ayat which obligate people to have At-Taqwa. How many ahadith of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam have you heard? When a man came to him and he said, Ya Rasulullah, awsini, O Messenger of Allah, advise me, admonish me. And the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, Usikum bi taqwa Allah. I advise and admonish you with the taqwa of Allah. Many ahadith is narrated from Mu'adh ibn Jabal and Abu Dharr al-Ghaffari and Abu Hurairah and Irbad ibn Sariyah and others amongst the Sahaba that they approached the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam for advice, and he advised them, Ittaqullah, maintain the taqwa of Allah. And as I mentioned also in the ayat, in fact, the khutab of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the sermons that he would give on Friday standing on the minbar, and the addresses that he would give to the people, whether it was a nikah or other gatherings, every single khutbah was regarding at-taqwa. All of the khutbah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, every single one of them, they revolve around the same theme, at-taqwa. This shows us the importance of at-taqwa. And also in the Quran, how many times in the Quran does Allah subhanahu praise the people of taqwa? How many ayat in the Quran does Allah subhanahu mention the traits of the people of taqwa, the actions of taqwa, the descriptions of taqwa? In fact, the Sahaba narrate that the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam كان إذا بعث أميرا على سرية, that when the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would dispatch an army, on an expedition, he would approach the Amir of the army, the division, the commander, the general of this division or this army. وَأَوْصَاهُ فِي خَاصَةِ نَفْسِهِ بِتَقْوَى اللَّهِ. And he would admonish him before sending him that to maintain taqwa within yourself. وَبِالْمُسْلِمِينَ خَيْرًا. And deal with the Muslims, meaning the soldiers who are under your command, deal with them fairly and properly. Every single expedition, when he sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would dispatch the army, he would approach the Amir, the commander, the general of the division, وَأَوْصَاهُ فِي نَفْسِهِ بِتَقْوَى اللَّهِ, and advise him and remind him about at-taqwa. And when the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would admonish the people, remind the people, he would remind them with at-taqwa. In the hadith of Irbad ibn Sariyah, he said, وَعَظَنَا رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ مَوْعِظَةَ مُوَدِّعٍ. The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he gave us a reminder, an admonishment. مَوْعِظَةَ مُوَدِّعٍ. And it was as if it was a person who was bidding us farewell. He said, وَجَلَتْ مِنْهَا الْقُلُوبُ وَذَرَفَتْ مِنْهَا الْعُيُونُ. That when we heard this reminder from the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, our hearts trembled and our eyes, they shed tears. And what did the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam advise him with? أوصيكم بتقوى الله عز وجل والسمع والطاعة. I advise you with the taqwa of Allah Azza wa Jal, والسمع والطاعة, and hearing, obeying, and accepting the authority of the Muslim rulers. So this was the constant message of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In fact, the fuqaha mentioned that from the pillars of a khutbatul Jum'ah, along with alhamd, wal istighfar, wal salat ala nabi, wal du'a lil muslimin, is al-amr bil taqwa. Some of them mention that if in the khutbah the khatib does not praise Allah and send salutations upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, make dua for the Muslims and order the people with at-taqwa, that khutbah is not considered to be valid. This is how important At-Taqwa is. Every single khatib in every single masjid, every single Jum'ah has to remind the people about At-Taqwa. And this was Daydanat al-Sahabati wal-Salaf. The Sahaba and the Salaf, they used to constantly advise each other with At-Taqwa. It's mentioned regarding Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, that when he assumed the Khilafah and he gave his famous sermon, the first words he said, أَمَّا بَعْدُ فَإِنِّي أُوصِيكُمْ بِتَقْوَى اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. He said, thereafter, I admonish you with the taqwa of Allah Azza wa Jal, وَأَن تُثْنُوا عَلَيْهِ بِمَا هُوَ أَهْلُهُ, and that you praise Allah with that which He is worthy of. And it's mentioned and narrated that when Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was on his deathbed, and he made Umar radiallahu anhu as the Khalifa, he chose Umar as the Khalifa. He called him, he said, Ya Umar, ittaqillah. O Umar, maintain the taqwa of Allah. Meaning, throughout your Khilafah, throughout your rule, maintain the taqwa of Allah. And it's mentioned regarding Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, that when he sent a Sariyah, when he dispatched an expedition or a division, a group of soldiers, he also called the Amir and he said, أُوصِيكَ بِتَقْوَى اللَّهِ الَّذِي لَا بُدَّ مِنْ لِقَائِهِ. He said, I admonish you with the taqwa of Allah, الَّذِي لَا بُدَّ مِنْ لِقَائِهِ, the one that there is no escape from meeting him. There is no escape except that every single one of us will meet Allah subhanahu. وَلَا مُنْتَهَى لَكَ دُونَهُ, and there is no ending for you except that it will be with Allah. وَهُوَ يَمْلِكُ الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ, and He is the one who owns the dunya and the akhirah. And it's narrated regarding Umar ibn Abdul Aziz rahimahullah, from the righteous khulafa, that he wrote an advice to one of his companions. He said, أُوصِيكَ بِتَقْوَى اللَّهِ, I admonish you with the taqwa of Allah, الَّتِي لَا يَقْبُلُ غَيْرَهُ, the taqwa which Allah does not accept anything aside from it. وَلَا يَرْحَمُ إِلَّا أَهْلَهَا, it is the taqwa, and Allah only shows His mercy to the people of At-Taqwa. وَلَا يُثِيبُ إِلَّا عَلَيْهَا, and Allah does not reward anything except that which is based upon At-Taqwa. فَإِنَّ الْوَاعِظِينَ بِهَا كَثِيرٌ وَالْعَامِلِينَ بِهَا قَلِيلٌ, because those who speak about taqwa are many, but those who act upon taqwa are very few. جَعَلَنَا اللَّهُ وَإِيَّاكَ مِنَ الْمُتَّقِينَ. May Allah make us and you from the people of At-Taqwa. And like this, many statements, many narrations from the Salaf advising each other regarding At-Taqwa. A man approached Yunus ibn Ubayd and he wanted to go perform Hajj. And always the way of the Salaf was that whenever one of them was about to go on a journey, they would approach the Imam, they would approach the elder, they would approach an alim and advise me. Before I leave on this journey, Hajj, Talab al-Ilm, Jihad fi Sabilillah, awsini, advise me. And Yunus ibn Ubayd from the Tabi'een, he said, Ittaqillah, my advice to you is to maintain the taqwa of Allah. فَمَنِ اتَّقَ اللَّهَ فَلَا وَحْشَةَ عَلَيْهِ, because the one who has taqwa of Allah will never feel loneliness. The one who has the taqwa of Allah will never feel lonely. And it's mentioned that a man amongst the Tabi'een, he said at his deathbed, أوصيكم بخاتمة سورة النحل. A man from the Tabi'een, from the Salaf, on his deathbed, he said to his relatives who were around him, He said, I advise you all with the end of Surah Al-Nahl, meaning the saying of Allah, إِنَّ اللَّهَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ مُحْسِنُونَ. Verily, Allah is with those people who have At-Taqwa, and He is with those people who are muhsinun, who do good and benefit others. And it's mentioned that a man amongst the Salaf, he wrote an advice to his brother. He said, أُوصِيكَ بِتَقْوَى اللَّهِ. I admonish you with the taqwa of Allah. فَإِنَّهَا أَكْرَمُ مَا أَسْرَرُ. Because the taqwa of Allah is the most noble quality which you have with you when you are alone. وَأَزْيَنُ مَا أَظْهَرْتُ. And it is the most beautiful characteristic when you are in front of others. وَأَفْضَلُ مَا ادَّخَرْتُ. And it is the best thing which you can store with you to take to the akhirah. He said, أَعَانَنَ اللَّهُ وَإِيَّاكَ عَلَيْهَا. May Allah help us and you upon At-Taqwa. وَأَوْجَبَ لَنَا وَلَكَ ثَوَابَهَا. And may Allah guarantee and bring His reward for us and you for At-Taqwa. So we find ayat in the Quran, a hadith of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the sermons of the Messenger, the sermons of the Khulafa, the advice of the Sahaba, the advice of the Salaf, the Tabi'een towards each other, the ulama, always regarding At-Taqwa, showing us the importance of At-Taqwa. And this is why when a man called Abul Qasim al-Maghrabi, al-Maghrabi, and he wrote a letter to Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, and he requested advice from Ibn Taymiyyah, بأن يوصيني ما فيه خير لي في دنياي وديني. He said to Ibn Taymiyyah that I seek from you advice in that which contains benefit and goodness for my dunya and my deen, my akhirah. And Ibn Taymiyyah, when he wrote his reply to him, his advice, he said, فَمَا أَعْلَمُ وَصِيَّةً أَنْفَعُ مِنْ وَصِيَّةِ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ لِمَنْ عَقَلَهَا وَاتَّبَعَهَا. Ibn Taymiyyah said, I do not know of any advice which is more beneficial for a person than the advice of Allah and His Messenger, the admonishment of Allah and His Messenger. For whom? لِمَنْ عَقَلَهَا. For the one who understands the wasiyah and follows and implements the wasiyah. And what was he referring to? When Ibn Taymiyyah replied, and he said, I do not know of any wasiyah which is more beneficial for a person than the wasiyah of Allah and His Messenger. What was he referring to? The statement of Allah in the Quran. وَلَقَدْ وَصَّيْنَا الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ وَإِيَّكُمْ أَنِ اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ. That verily, we have admonished those who were given the book before you, and you as well. What? أَنِ اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ. That you should maintain the taqwa of Allah. And this is why the ulama, when they speak about the taqwa of Allah, what do they call it? وَصِيَّةُ اللَّهِ لِلْأَوَّلِينَ وَالْآخِرِينَ. That the taqwa of Allah, it is the wasiyah, the advice and the admonishment of Allah for the first and the last. Meaning, taqwa is the wasiyah of Allah for all humanity, for the early nations and the latter nations, the nation of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. وَلَقَدْ وَصَّيْنَا الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ وَإِيَّاكُمْ أَنِ اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ. Allah says, verily we gave our wasiyah to those who came before you, and also you, O Ummah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, أَنِ اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ. They should have the taqwa of Allah. And also, Ibn Taymiyyah is referring to the hadith of Mu'adh ibn Jabal. The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he approached Mu'adh ibn Jabal, and he was sending Mu'adh to Yemen, and he sent Mu'adh to Yemen in order to go give da'wah to the people there. And the people in Yemen at that time, they were Ahlul Kitab, they were Jews and Christians. So the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, Ya Mu'adh, Wallahi inni uhibbuka lillah. He said, Oh Mu'adh, verily I love you for the sake of Allah. And then he said, Alayka bittaqwa Allah. Upon you is the taqwa of Allah. Ittaqillah haythuma kunt. Have the taqwa of Allah wherever you may be. وَأَتْبِعِ السَّيِّئَةَ الْحَسَنَةَ تَمْحُوهَا. And follow up a bad deed by doing a good deed, and it will wipe it away. وَخَالِقِ النَّاسَ بِخُلُقٍ حَسَنٍ. And interact with the people and behave with them with good manners. The hadith is in Sunan At-Tirmidhi. So when Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, when he said, فَمَا أَعْلَمُ وَصِيَّةً أَنْفَعُ مِنْ وَصِيَّةِ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ, he said, I do not know of any advice more beneficial than the advice of Allah and His Messenger. He is referring to this ayah and this hadith. وَلَقَدْ وَصَيْنَا الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ وَإِيَّاكُمْ أَنِ اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ. And the hadith of Mu'adh, اتَّقِ اللَّهَ حَيْثُمَا كُنْتَ. And this question by Abul Qasim al-Maghribi, and the answer which Ibn Taymiyyah gave, it is known as, it is a risala which is printed and explained by the ulama. It is known as al-wasiyya as-sughra. It is known as al-wasiyya as-sughra, the minor advice, in which Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he advised Abul Qasim al-Maghribi with certain matters. And perhaps if Allah subhanahu makes it easy one day, we can return and we can do a full day, like intensive lessons, which we cover the whole wasiyah of Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, and this brother is responsible inshallah for organizing it. Now, so al-muhim, this is regarding the importance of at-taqwa. And therefore we have to understand what is at-taqwa, what is the meaning of at-taqwa. So at-taqwa, it comes from the word al-wiqaya. And wiqaya is any protection which a person takes. Wiqaya is a protection, it is a barrier, it is a prevention, it is a shield, it is armory. This is the meaning of at-taqwa. It comes from al-wiqaya, to put a barrier which saves you from something. When they define at-taqwa, they said it is أن تجعل بين نفسك وبين عقاب الله وقاية. At-taqwa is that you place between yourself and between the punishment of Allah a barrier. This is at-taqwa. You place between yourself and the punishment of Allah a shield. This shield, this barrier, this armory, this is at-taqwa. And what is this shield? I mean, what is that thing which will save you from the punishment of Allah? فِعْلَ الْمَأْمُورَاتِ وَتَرْكَ الْمَنْهِيَاتِ. That you fulfill the wajibat of Allah and you stay away from the muharramat of Allah. This is your shield. This is what protects a person from the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أَن تَجْعَلَ بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَ عِقَابِ اللَّهِ وِقَايَةً. That you place between you and between the punishment of Allah a shield. The shield, the wiqaya, the barrier, this is at-taqwa. And it is narrated by many amongst the Sahaba and the Salaf, different definitions of taqwa, but all of them revolve around the same thing. And all of the definitions, they revolve around wiqaya, that you protect yourself from the punishment of Allah. So Talq ibn Habib rahimahullah, and he's from the Sahaba, he said, إِذَا وَقَعَتِ الْفِتْنَةِ أَطْفِئُوهَا بِالتَّقْوَى. That whenever fitna occurs, extinguish the fitna through at-taqwa. And the meaning of fitna here, and this is very important, is when problems occur between us. Now, when differences occur in your marriages, friends, between relatives, in your organizations, in your committees, when this fitna, when these divisions, disunity, confusion, disagreements, problems, when all of this occurs, أطفئوها بالتقوى, then extinguish them with At-Taqwa. This wording of the Habib, أطفئوها, extinguish it, is very interesting, because it shows us that this fitna, these disagreements, this disunity, these problems, they are a fire. And this fire, it will eat up everything which is in its way. It will burn every goodness which you have done. It will burn all the good manners. And this is why you find that there are people in times of calmness and goodness, very good person, very good manners. But as soon as the fitna occurs, it's as if you're dealing with another person. You find a person never says a bad word, never swears, never backbites. But when the fitna occurs, when the disagreements or the problems occur, you find him swearing and insulting and backbiting. And you never knew that this is the same person. Why? Because this is the nature of fitna. Fitna burns people. It changes people. And it affects every single person. It's the same person. But because of the environment and the toxic environment, then people's behaviors change. So Talq ibn Habib, he said, when it is this time, the time of fitna, this is where you have to show your taqwa. Otherwise, in times of peace and goodness and ease, everybody is a person of taqwa. Everybody has good manners. But when is your taqwa needed? When is your taqwa demonstrated? During the time of fitna. So he said, إِذَا وَقَعَتِ الْفِتْنَةُ أَطْفِئُوهَا بِالتَّقْوَى. That when fitna occurs, then extinguish and wipe away the fitna through At-Taqwa. They said, Ya Aba Ali, O Abu Ali, وَمَا التَّقْوَى? They said, O Abu Ali, what is this taqwa? He said, Rahimullah, that At-Taqwa أن تعمل بطاعة الله على نور من الله ترجو ثواب الله. Three things. He said, At-Taqwa is that you base your actions upon the obedience of Allah. على نور من الله, from a guidance from Allah, meaning based upon evidences, guidance from the Quran, light from the Quran. ترجو ثواب الله, hoping for the reward which is with Allah. He said, وَأَن تَتْرُكَ مَعْصِيَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَى نُورٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ تَخَافُ عِقَابَ اللَّهِ. And that you stay away from sinning with light and guidance from Allah, fearing the punishment of Allah. This is a taqwa when fitna occurs. And as I gave an example, don't think that fitna is a war which occurs in another country. No, fitna in our families, our relations between neighbors, in our masajid, in committees, amongst friends, when inheritance is being divided amongst brothers and sisters. Now, when husband and wife are going through a separation or a divorce or problems, all of this is fitna. So during this situation, how do you behave? Firstly, your actions have to be based upon obeying Allah subhanahu. So ghiba is not ta'atullah. Exaggerating problems is not ta'atullah. Taking the rights of people, taking the inheritance of your sisters is not ta'atullah. Also, ala nurin min Allah, based upon evidences, based upon the teachings and the guidance of the Quran and the Sunnah. The brothers taking all of the inheritance, this is not nurun min Allah. The elder taking all of the inheritance is not nurun min Allah. Preventing a sister or a brother or one of the wives from the inheritance is not nurun min Allah. And in all of your actions, you're hoping for the reward with Allah. Meaning when the fitna, when the disagreement, this behavior of mine, this step of mine, does it bring the reward of Allah or does it bring the punishment of Allah? This is At-Taqwa. And there is a narration from Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, and also narrated by Ubay ibn Ka'ab, a person asked them, Mat taqwa, what is at-taqwa? And they gave a very beautiful example of at-taqwa. Yani an example which every person will understand. They said, Ama salakta tariqan dha shawkin? Have you ever walked on a street or a path in which there are thorns which hurt and prick? Yani, like in our society, stones and dangers and glass and harmful objects, thorns. So, أما سلكت طريقا ذا شوك? Have you never walked a path in which there are dangers and obstacles and thorns? And he said, Bala, of course. He said, فما عملت? So when you were walking on this path, how were you walking? They said, شمرت واجتهدت. That every single step I was taking, I was very careful. Which step? Where is my foot landing? He said, ذاك التقوى. This is at-taqwa. Meaning, when you're walking on that path, even if you're driving on that path and there's potholes and glass and stones, how do you drive? When there's speed bumps, how do you drive? Slowly, carefully, avoiding certain sections. When you're walking as well, when your children are walking, stay away from this, don't go over there, there's dirt over there. This is at-taqwa. Meaning every single action which you take, very careful and slow with that action. Does it please Allah or does it anger Allah? Every single statement which you make, very careful, very slow. Does this statement please Allah? Does it anger Allah? Every single business decision, every single business contract which you're going to sign, every job which you're going to take, every business dealing which you are completing, very careful. Does this money, this income, this job, this contract, does it please Allah? Does it anger Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Every single relationship and how you behave in that relationship and the relationship which you make or break, always thinking, being very slow. Is it angering Allah? Is it pleasing Allah? Does it take me closer to Jannah or does it take me closer to the fire? Does it bring about the reward of Allah or does it bring about the punishment of Allah? Does it please Allah or does it anger Allah? Like a person walking ala tariqin dha shawk. Like a person walking on a path or a street which is full of thorns and dangerous, harmful objects. The poet, he said, خَلِدْ ذُنُوبَ صَغِيرَهَا وَكَبِيرَهَا ذَاكَ التَّقْوَى. Stay away from sins. The smallest of them and the most severe of them, that is at-taqwa. He said, وَاصْنَعْ كَمَاشٍ فَوْقَ أَرْضِ الشَّوْكِ. And be like a person who is walking on a path full of thorns. يَحْذَرْ مَا يَرَى. Being very careful of every step he is taking. لا تحقرن صغيرة إن الجبال من الحصى. So do not belittle even the smallest action. Why? Because mountains are made of small stones. Mountains are made of small stones. And in reality, even though we say صغائر الذنوب or كبائر الذنوب, minor sins and major sins, the reality is there are no minor sins. Every sin is severe because it's not the sin which is feared, it's the punishment of Allah subhanahu. And every punishment of Allah, it is severe. And this is why we say, Allah subhanahu mentions that He is غافر الذنب قابل التوب شديد العقاب. He said, Allah, He's غافر الذنب. He forgives the sins. قابل التوب. And He accepts repentance. شديد العقاب. However, He's severe in His punishment. Severe in His punishment. So there is, it's incorrect for us to think that this sin, it is small and this sin, it is severe. So I stay away from big sins. As for the small sins, they're only minor sins, they're only saghair. No. Because as the poet said, لا تحقرن صغيرة, do not belittle even the smallest sin. إن الجبال من الحصى, even the greatest mountains are made of small stones. And also, when it comes to good deeds, also لا تحقرن من المعروف شيئا. He says, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, do not belittle any good deed. Any good deed, do not belittle it. There's no such thing as small good deed. You don't look at the deed, you look at the reward of Allah subhanahu, the one who holds you to account. And the reward of Allah, nothing is little or belittled when it comes to the reward of Allah. So he said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, لا تحقرن من المعروف شيئا ولو شق التمر. Never belittle even the smallest good deed, even if it is half of a date which you give in charity. He said, وَلَوْ طَلْقَ الْوَجْهِ, even a smile in the face of your brother, do not belittle a good deed. Sins are not belittled, and neither are good deeds belittled. And so, if we want to speak about the means and the avenues, yani if somebody asked that how can I attain At-Taqwa? What are the ways for us to attain At-Taqwa? These are mentioned in the Quran. Because remember, why was the Quran revealed? هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. Allah subhanahu said, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. Alif Lam Mim, that is the book. There's no doubt in it. Why did it send it to us? هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ, as a guidance for the people of Taqwa. So the objective of the Quran is to show us a path of Taqwa. And that if we live by the Quran and the guidance of the Quran, we will know the path of At-Taqwa. So As-Sirat al-Mustaqim, the straight path, it is the path of Taqwa. Hablullah, the rope of Allah, it is At-Taqwa. The path of the righteous people, Sirat al-Ladina Namta alayhim, is the path of the people of At-Taqwa. The whole Quran is there to teach us about At-Taqwa and how to. So if we want to know how do we become muttaqeen, what do we find in the Quran? From the ways of attaining At-Taqwa, firstly, is to think about the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Thinking about the creation of Allah, it helps us and develops taqwa inside a person. So a Muslim is not like the kafir. The kafir is very shallow. When it's winter, he only sees the effect. He does not think about the cause. So the effect of winter is that it becomes cold and snow and rain descend and animals hibernate and the plants and the trees, they wither and they die and the land becomes barren. That is only the effect of winter. But who is the cause of winter? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the kafir is shallow in his thinking. The Muslim is not shallow in his thinking. Similarly, when it comes to summers, the kafir only thinks about the effect, the heat, the severity, the thirst. But the Muslim thinks about Rabbu Shams, Rabbu Sayf, the one who created the sun, the one who created the heat. And so when you think about all of these things, it reminds you about Allah subhanahu, that if this is the heat and the severity of the sun, then what is the severity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator of the sun, the creator of the fire. Now when the kafir thinks about the mountains, the stars, the planets, it only extends to the effect. But the Muslim, إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل واختلاف النهار واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, verily, in the creation of the heavens and the earth and the changing of the night and the day, there are ayat for who? Ulul albab, for people of deep thinking, not shallow people. People of deep thinking. Who are they? الذين يذكرون الله, those who mention Allah. نعم. قِيَامًا وَقُعُودًا وَعَلَى جُنُوبِهِمْ. Those who mention Allah when they are standing and sitting and on their sides. What do they say? رَبَّنَا مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا. Oh our Lord, everything which we can see around us, the skies, the earth, the stars, the mountains, the trees, the ocean, the dark, the light, the heat, the cold, the animals, مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا. You did not create this for no purpose. You did not create this without an objective. Subhanallah. Because you're too perfect. You're too glorified. You're too powerful to do things without a purpose. فَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. So save us from the fire of the hereafter. Meaning, the people of Islam, the people of Iman, the people of Taqwa, when they see creation upon this earth, it reminds them about the Creator and the hereafter. So the first way to attain At-Taqwa is to ponder over the creation of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسُ اعْبُدُوا رَبَّكُمُ الَّذِي خَلَقَكُمْ وَالَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. O people, worship your Lord, the one who created you and those who came before you, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. So you may attain At-Taqwa. Also from the avenues of attaining At-Taqwa is learning and seeking knowledge. You have to learn what is the correct path, what is halal, what is haram. So you cannot attain At-Taqwa based upon ignorance. Because the ignorant person does not know Tawheed and Shirk, does not know Sunnah and Bid'ah, does not know halal and haram. And this is why some of the Salaf, they said, At-Taqwa, it is أن تعلم ما تتقي ثم تتقي. That At-Taqwa is for you to learn what to be fearful of and then to be fearful of. At-Taqwa is first for you to learn what is haram, then stay away from the haram. Learn what is shirk, learn what is bid'ah, learn what is ma'asiyah, learn what is kabair, saghair, and then stay away from them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, وَأَنَّ هَذَا صِرَاطِي مُسْتَقِيمًا فَاتَّبِعُوهُ وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا السُّبُلَ فَتَفَرَّقَ بِكُمْ عَنْ سَبِيلِهِ. He said, say, this is my straight path, so follow it, and do not follow the other paths, so they cause you to become misguided. ذَلِكُمْ وَصَّاكُمْ بِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. This is what he has advised you with, so you may attain At-Taqwa. This shows us that in order for us to attain At-Taqwa, we have to know As-Sirat al-Mustaqim. And you cannot know As-Sirat al-Mustaqim without learning. So a person who is jahil regarding Aqidah cannot be a person of Taqwa. A person who does not know Tawheed and does not study Tawheed cannot be a person of Taqwa. A person who does not know Sunnah and does not know Bid'ah cannot be a person of Taqwa. So the gatherings of knowledge are gatherings of Taqwa. The teachings of Tawheed, the books of Tawheed, the Quran, all of it is Tawheed. Because only through Tawheed can a person attain At-Taqwa. And we finish with this. The third way for a person to attain At-Taqwa is to respect and exalt and love the Sha'air Allah. Now, Sha'air Allah meaning the symbols of Islam, the great rituals of Islam, the major ibadat of Islam, the limits and the boundaries of Islam. In order for a person to be a person of taqwa, you have to exalt the limits, the boundaries, the ibadat, the sha'air, the great symbols and rituals of Islam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, تِلْكَ حُدُودُ اللَّهِ فَلَا تَقْرَبُوهَا. That these are the limits and the boundaries of Allah, do not approach them. كَذَلِكَ يُبَيِّنُ اللَّهُ آيَاتِهِ لِلنَّاسِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَّقُونَ. This is how Allah, He clarifies His ayat for the people, so they may be people of taqwa. So in order to attain taqwa, you have to recognize the boundaries which Allah subhanahu has set, the halal and the haram. And then you don't belittle this. It's very important. Haram is very important. Halal is very important. And also Allah subhanahu said, ذَلِكَ وَمَنْ يُعَذِّمْ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّهَا مِنْ تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. And so, the one who يُعَذِّمُ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ, the one who exalts the great symbols and the rituals of Allah, ذَلِكَ مِنْ تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. This is فَإِنَّهَا مِنْ تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. This is from the taqwa of the heart. And the meaning of يُعَذِّمْ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ, exalting, magnifying the sha'air of Allah. For example, hijab is from the sha'air of Islam. Hijab is one of the great symbols of Islam. You cannot belittle hijab. You cannot have taqwa if you're belittling the hijab, the greatness of hijab, the importance of hijab. Rather, you have to magnify the importance of hijab if you want to attain taqwa. And I don't just mean sisters wearing hijab, of course. A sister who is not wearing hijab, she's not a person of taqwa. But even us as men, as Muslims, exalting the importance of the hijab, knowing the importance of hijab, respecting the sisters who are wearing hijab, never joking about the hijab or belittling the hijab, advising our sisters wearing the hijab. This is from وَمَنْ يُعَذِّمْ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ, exalting the great symbols and rituals of Allah. Like this, the month of Ramadan, the Salah, the beard for the men. All of these are great symbols of Islam. Now, the family structure, nikah, zawaj. These are symbols of Islam. Islam is recognized by these things. If you ask a non-Muslim, how if you were to ask a non-Muslim who is a Muslim, what is Islam? They say Muslims, their women wear hijab. They fast 1 month in a year. There's something called prayer in their religion. They respect Mecca, Medina, Jerusalem. Now, this shows us that these are the sha'air of Allah. These are the great symbols and rituals of Islam. So also from At-Taqwa and attaining At-Taqwa is exalting the sha'air of Allah. And this is important because as Muslims, not only do we fast Ramadan, not only do we pray the 5 salawat, but we have to love the salah. Now, this is a point which many Muslims miss. You might find a person fasts Ramadan, gives in charity, prays the salawat, but does not have love for the salawat. So loving salah, loving hijab, loving Ramadan, loving the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has obligated the salah. Now, a person who says that I pray my salah, but I find it a burden upon me. This is not a taqwa. And it's feared that this may be kufr, believing that an aspect of Islam is burdensome. Now, not difficult, because of course there is difficulty in jihad fi sabilillah is not easy, it's difficult. Hajj is not easy, it's difficult. It requires sabr. You have sabr upon difficulty. But we don't say that salah is a burden which Allah has burdened with. Na'udhu billah. Staying away from riba is a burden which Allah has burdened with. Na'udhu billah. So we have to do these actions or stay away from those haram aspects, but loving the fact that Allah has made it halal or wajib or haram. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us people of taqwa. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He shows us the truth, then allows us to implement and follow the truth. And He shows us falsehood and allows us to stay away from falsehood. Allahumma inna nas'aluka al-ikhlas fil qawli wal amal. Allahumma inna nas'aluka al-jannah wa ma qarraba ilayha min qawli wa amal. Allahumma inna na'udhu bika min an-nar wa ma qarraba ilayha min qawli wa amal. اللهم تقبل منا صيامنا وقيامنا وصدقاتنا ودعواتنا. اللهم اغفر لنا ولوالدينا ولمشايخنا وللمسلمين أجمعين. هذا والله أعلم وصلى الله على نبينا وسلم.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh, for that important reminder. And inshallah, I think we'll conclude with some questions if anyone has questions from the brother side. And then inshallah, in the meantime, if somebody can collect the question from the sister's side as well, inshallah. So if you'd like to start with us. No questions? Sorry. What's the question? Or does Kafur break the fast? The ulama, they mentioned 5 or 6 matters which break the fast. If you know those 5 or 6 matters, then you know that everything besides them does not break the fast. So they said, al-akal wa shurb muta'ammid, eating and drinking intentionally. This shows us that anything which is not food or drink, or any food or drink which is consumed unintentionally, does not break the fast. They mention ma fi hukm al-akli wa shurb, that which is not eating or drinking, but it takes the ruling of eating and drinking. And by that they mean any form of medicine which a person takes, which provides nutrition to the body. So if a person took an injection, but it provides nutrition to the body, although it's not food or drink, but it's in the ruling of food or drink. And this shows us that anything which is not fi hukm al-akli wa shurb, it does not break the fast. So for example, if a person took an injection which is an anesthetic, it just kills the pain, numbs the pain. It does not provide strength and nutrition to the body, and this does not break the fast. Like this, they mentioned al-jima, any marital relations, it breaks the fast. Like this, they mentioned that if a person is overcome by vomit, if an istiqa, if a person induces vomit, a person makes himself like they cause him to vomit, this breaks the fast. Us that if a person is overcome by vomit, it's not his choice, it does not break the fast. Now, any other actions, inzalul mani, shahwatan, they said also, for example, a discharge of a lot of blood. This shows that a small amount of blood does not break the fast. A nosebleed, a gum bleed, if you cut your finger, if you give a small amount of blood for analysis, this does not break the fast. But a lot of bleeding, this breaks the fast. So the important thing to answer your question is, if you understand which things break the fast, these 5 things, then everything in addition to them does not break the fast. So for example, al-bukhur, smelling perfume, or this perfume smoke, it does not break the fast. Using an inhaler does not break the fast. Rinsing and brushing your teeth with toothpaste does not break the fast. Using creams or cosmetic products does not break the fast, unlike this.
When we are standing in the shop or something, there's a space in the front.
Yeah.
And some brothers, they say to you, the brother, you go in the front.
Yeah.
Rather than him going in the front.
Out of respect.
Yeah. So, we heard from the Sahaba, they always used to struggle with each other to go into the front. So, is it, if I said to somebody else, you go in the front.
Yeah.
So will I get the reward for him telling him to go in the front, or do I need to go in the front myself?
So the question is that if we find a gap in the front row, the base of the question is it better for me to step forward, or should I encourage somebody else to go forward, and do I also get the reward? The ulama, they spoke about this issue. And this is called, and this issue is at-tafadul bayn al-a'mal. That when you have 2 actions and both of them contain reward, which one is more rewarding? So what you have to understand is no doubt there's reward in standing in the front row. But if you find a person next to you, for example, he's an alim, hafiz of the Quran, or from the well-respected elders, also respecting elders and respecting the people of knowledge, the imam of the masjid, the hafiz, the khatib, this is also an act of virtue. This is also an act of reward. And so, encouraging that person to go forward, or allowing that person to go forward, in some instances may be more rewarding than you stepping forward. So this isn't to say that if there's a gap, you should race with each other and go forward. Now, that is also rewarding. And neither do we say all the time that allowing somebody else to go forward is more rewarding. But you have to weigh up that either going forward or which person you are trying to go forward. So as I mentioned, if it is a person who is deserving of respect, like a hafiz, talib al-ilm, the imam of a masjid, then perhaps it's more rewarding to allow him to go forward. But if it's somebody who's equal to you, similar to you, younger than you, then it's better and more rewarding for you to step forward. As I mentioned, this is known as At-Taqwa bayn al-a'mal. And when you have two actions, both of them are virtues, and you think about which one is better and more rewarding.
I was just going to ask about the ruling on music ringtones.
That wasn't a ringtone.
Obviously, if a ringtone rings by accident, now then that person's excused. And if you're referring to what happened today, I believe, wallahu alam, I believe, because it was an elder, I don't think he placed that ringtone there. Sometimes your children place a ringtone, especially if it's a new phone and you've not placed that ringtone or you don't know how to change the ringtone. Looking at the person, the elder, I don't think he intended to do it. I think maybe one of the children, or is a setting that he does not realize. No longer placed.
Student loans, what's
Allah knows best. Allahu a'lam.
Sorry. Ustadh, you talked about respecting the Sha'ir and obviously we live in the West.
Yeah.
Who's attacked on these things
Yeah.
from Western institutions. So what some advice you can give us to raise our families to honor and respect the symbols of Islam, overviewing what they see around them in the West?
With regards to respecting the Sha'ir of Islam and the great rituals and symbols of Islam, especially in the society that we're living in, I think first of all you have to remember that the first society of a person is the four walls of his own house. So before we complain about the society which is outside, and the teachers which are outside, and the curriculum which is outside, before that is the society in your own house. And the teachers in your own house are the husband and the father. And the curriculum in your own house means the teaching and the tarbiyah which you're giving your children. So it's no benefit in us complaining about society and schools and teachers and what's being taught if within your own country, your own state, your dawla, meaning your house, you're not fulfilling and instilling those values. So always it begins with what is in your own four walls. And each one of us is a real dawla. Each one of us is the ruler of a country, the ruler of a state. And that is our own four walls. And nobody forces you in your house to live a particular way. So it has to begin with the tarbiyah of the children whilst they are young within the house. Now, and if it begins there, then when they then go outside, they're able to protect themselves. So before the child goes outside, before we go outside in our own houses, we make our houses places of dhikr and tilawah and Quran, fearing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, exalting these sha'air of Allah, whether it's Jerusalem, Makkah, Hajj, Umrah, Hijab, Saum, Ramadan, Quran, etc. But if in our own houses there is no respect for the sha'air of Islam, if our own houses, all our discussions and conversations about business and riba and this loan and that deal and about the dunya, and there's no respect of halal and haram, yani, it always saddens me, subhanallah, when I'm walking to the masjid and when it's like Ashura, when it's Yom Arafah, when it's like the 27th night of Ramadan, and inside the masjid, alhamdulillah, the imams of the masajid, they highlight Ashura's coming next week, Ashura's coming tomorrow, this is the reward for fasting, Ashura the 10th of Muharram. Alhamdulillah, inside the masjid you find people, the practicing people of Taqwa, they exalt these days. But then subhanAllah, you're walking through the town center and you see the Muslims, and I bet the large majority of them, they don't know whether it's Muharram, Ashura, Yom Arafah, the day before Arafah, the day after Arafah, no knowledge, no concern. Yani Ashura is like any other day. Same sins on this day, same sins as every other day. So subhanAllah also, yani the Amir of the house has a responsibility, meaning the father and the mother. And the Amir in the marriage has a responsibility. And the Amir of the masjid, meaning the Khatib, also has a responsibility. So all of us, the main thing is that we fulfill the responsibilities in that which Allah has obligated upon us. As for those things which are not in our obligation, we have the power of dua. So you cannot control what is happening in Egypt and Saudi and Riyadh and Pakistan and Afghanistan. You cannot control that. But what you can control is your own house and your state and your country. And one of the biggest problems of Muslims is that we want to talk about that, but when it's in our own houses, we don't want to talk about it too much. Now, this is called deflecting, reflecting, meaning we are doing the same sins that we're accusing Pakistan and Tunisia and Egypt and Saudi Arabia of. We're doing the same things, but by talking about them and criticizing them, we may feel a bit better because we're deflecting and reflecting the blame away from us to those countries and those rulers. Okay, the ruler of Pakistan or Saudi or Tunisia or Egypt, okay, but the ruler of your house? Now, who decides in your house whether riba is allowed or not? And whether that income is a halal or haram? You decide. So we cannot complain about, but this country has riba banks, when our own house is based upon a mortgage. Our own businesses are based upon riba. Now, what is the benefit in people crying over Masjid al-Aqsa, and then at the same time, your own masjid, and there's no restriction upon you attending your own masjid, you're boycotting that masjid. And why do we cry about and scream about those kuffar in Sweden and Holland, they're burning the Quran, when you in your own house, you completely boycotting the Quran. You never open the Quran except in Ramadan. So always, to answer the question, this tarbiyah and this responsibility is that which is in your sphere of influence. You fulfill what is the sphere of your influence, and as for what this ruler is doing and that ruler is doing and this person is doing and that neighbor is doing, you leave that with Allah subhanahu. And you have with you dua and nasiha, al-amr bil ma'ruf, al-nahy anil munkar, but fulfill your responsibility. Allahu Akbar.
Okay, one more. So, talking about income, I wanted to, what's the meaning about trading currency and commodity and stuff like that?
The base ruling when it comes to any type of business, any type of trade, is that it is halal. This is the base ruling. وَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and Allah has made trade, commerce, buying and selling halal, and He has made riba haram. So the base ruling of any type of trade or commerce, whether it is digital or physical, is that it is halal. And as for riba, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made haram. So what you have to do is you have to take that particular business, that particular model, now that particular trade and take it to an alim, imam, khatib, and ask them, look, this particular type of trade, does this contain anything which is haram? Does it contain riba? Does it contain jahada? Does it contain gharar? Or the other types of haram transactions? So the base ruling is that it is halal. So with regards to, for example, stocks, shares, forex, currency, etc., some of it will be halal, some of it will be haram. So it's not easy just to give one answer. But you take that particular dealing, that particular contract to talib al-ilm, an alim, and find out, is this particular contract halal or haram? The base ruling is it is halal, but there are always exceptions. And you have to always, in every contract, you have to study. It's like people always, I'm not an expert in any way, people always ask, look, Islamic mortgages, halal mortgages. You can't give a ruling like that. Because these Islamic or halal mortgages, I have no doubt that many of them will be halal, no doubt. There's also possibly some of them are halal. So you can't give one ruling. But every contract, every specific contract or deal or mortgage, what they call halal mortgage, has to be studied and a ruling is given based on that. Saying that, there is an article that myself and one of the brothers we compiled on our website, medina.com, the ruling of forex and currency exchange. Now, so if you type medina.com, MADEENAH, and let's type forex or currency exchange, it's quite a lengthy article and all the rulings are given there. There's also another article which I compiled regarding the different types and rulings of insurance, commercial insurance and cooperative insurance. Also, it's on the website, inshallah. There's more details on there. Sister asks, what is your advice to someone who thinks he is doing good, in reality is doing wrong? And how do we know if we are doing the right things? The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, knowledge comes with learning. Knowledge comes with learning. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask the people of remembrance if you do not know. Ask people of the scripture if you do not know. So how something is right or wrong? By learning, studying, looking at the evidences, and if you do not know, you ask the Tulab al-Ilm, you ask the Imam of a masjid. That's the first thing. The second thing is somebody who thinks they are doing good, but in reality they are doing wrong. Again, the question is not so easy to answer. It depends. So it's possible that a person might be rewarded for his intention because he intended goodness. But he's not rewarded for his action because the action was not good. No? It could also be that a person is excused for being ignorant, because there are certain types of ignorance which are excused, but there are other types of ignorance which are not excused. So a person cannot say, I was ignorant regarding the 5 daily prayers. There's no excuse for this type of ignorance, because every single Muslim knows, ma'lum bil darura, by default, they have to pray 5 prayers. There's no Muslim who is ignorant regarding the salah. Yes, you could say, like a new Muslim who accepted Islam 2-3 days ago, does not know the rulings of salah. You could say maybe that person is ignorant. He's excused for his ignorance. But like, I think most of us here, maybe not every, most of us here who grew up in a Muslim family, in a Muslim environment, attending the masjid, around the Quran, around Hadith, with mobile phones, apps, internet, nobody can claim ignorance regarding the salah. So also there are certain types of ignorance which are excused, and there are other types of ignorance which cannot be excused. And then the final question from the sisters: what is your advice for married couples, or for a wife who fears the husband will not lower his gaze, or that he will talk to other women? my advice is that you put this question to the Imam of the Masjid, Sheikh Wajid, who is much more experienced and older and more knowledgeable, more wise than me when it comes to matters of marriage. Yeah? And this is an advice that should be sought from somebody who's experienced and has been married for a long time. Does he have grandchildren here? He has grandchildren, mashallah, grandnephews and grandnieces. So my advice is that you approach Sheikh Wajid and you put this question to him. But I will add that when it comes to the husband lowering the gaze and the husband and the wife having a good marriage, the obligation is from both sides. So upon the husband is to know that it is haram to gaze at women, to stare at women, to have haram relationships. And it's upon the wife to help the husband in doing this in every single way. And this, my respected sisters, includes a wife beautifying herself for her husband and looking after her health and her body for her husband. And also the husband understanding that look, our Muslim sisters, our Muslim wives, they're not like the non-Muslim wives. The non-Muslim, the kuffar women. So look, naturally, and we cannot be shy about this, when your wife has 1, 2, 3, 4 children, it is nature that Allah's created upon that her body will not remain like a 70-year-old woman who goes to the gym and has never had children. Nowadays, the body will not be the same. We have to respect that nature which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created them upon. At the same time, it is upon the wife to not be negligent in this manner. So for her husband, she dresses nice, she perfumes herself, she appears nice, she can wear makeup for her husband, do her hair for her husband, she can try to stay fit and eat healthy, etc. This she should also do. So the obligation is upon both sides. And it's always strange, wallah, it's always strange that you'll find a sister, and when it comes to going outside, she puts makeup on. Yeah, in her own house, she doesn't put makeup on. And the asl is that she beautifies herself for her husband, not for people who are outside. In fact, I'll go one step further. That when her in-laws are coming, or when his in-laws are coming, her parents, her brothers and sisters, her relatives, she put on nice clothes, makeup, do her hair, and sahih, it's her parents, there's no problem with this. But the asl is that you beautify yourself for your husband. This is first. Not for your parents or your in-laws or your relatives. No, for your own husband first. So from both sides, from the husband and the wife, there's a responsibility to protect each other and look after each other. Look how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described marriage in the Quran. Look how He described the husband and wife. He said, هُنَّ لِبَاسٌ لَكُمْ وَأَنْتُمْ لِبَاسٌ لَهُنَّ. That you, the wives, you are a libas. You are a covering and a garment for them, your husbands. And you, husbands, you are a garment and a covering for your wives. Now, that means the responsibility is upon each other to help each other in having a good Islamic marriage, staying away from haram, helping lowering the gaze, not talking to other women. The sisters knowing that your husbands, they go out and they work and they're in a society in which there are women around them, and these women are beautifying themselves. Don't let him come home and then he comes and you've not beautified yourself and you're not looking after yourself. Also, on both sides, there's to be a great effort, and the husband has to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as I mentioned, speak to Sheikh Wajid, inshallah.
Hi everybody for coming out today, inshallah. I'm benefiting from the Ustadh. Inshallah, we conclude here. It's close to Iftar time. So okay, inshallah, you can get home and have some food, inshallah.